Welcome back to another episode of Prep Baseball Iowa's Canicorn Podcast. Canicorn Podcast, the only Iowa baseball podcast with Parker Hageman. And over there is Rob Allison. Rob, how are you doing today?
Good. We're creeping up on the holiday season. I'm full of festive cheer, I suppose. But no, the world keeps spinning. All is good.
If you had to rank Thanksgiving in your holiday list, where is it? Where does it land?
Probably number two.
Number two?
Yeah. I really like Halloween.
Free candy, right?
I like Halloween. It can, just October, November, December. Boom, boom, boom. Halloween, Turkey Day, Christmas.
It's the big three.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't, obviously, like if you're hosting, there's a little bit more pressure, a little more stress. But if you're not, you just get to enjoy everything and go home, right?
Oh yeah, like ever since we moved back here and I started working for Prep Baseball, we've always hosted Thanksgiving. And this week is typically like the seventh circle of hell. Getting everything ready and clean and pristine and ready to go for the fam to come over and everything else. And actually my mother-in-law is hosting this year. So selfishly, I'm pretty jacked up. This has been a pretty easy week.
All right, then we in our pre-production meeting, we talked about possibly ranking Thanksgiving sides. I called an audible. Sorry about that for you. But if there's one food item that makes your Thanksgiving complete, what is it?
Just one. Just one. I really like well, I'm going to say, turkey and green bean casserole. Like, because typically we only eat turkey on Thanksgiving. It isn't like we're sitting around in like June and like, hey, let's bust a butterball out of the freezer and let's whip up a turkey. So it's kind of the one time a year that I eat that. And I do like turkey, but I really like green bean casserole. In Minnesota, would that be called green bean hot dish? Or do you actually use the casserole word? Or
I think for Thanksgiving purposes, yeah. Thanksgiving purposes, it's a casserole, but any other day of the year, that would have been a hot dish. Yeah.
That would be a whole nother episode. Dissecting the difference between casseroles and hot dishes.
See, to me, gravy makes the meal because no matter what kind of food you have on your plate, as long as the gravy's good and you smother it, like that food's delicious, right? Like it doesn't matter what's underneath it. It's now got the viscosity of the gravy and yeah, that gravy goodness.
No, I totally agree with that. You could put gravy on a shoe and I would slop it into my mouth probably. Big fan of gravy.
We don't have enough gravy.
Au jus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, gravy and au jus. Like I love. My kids get all grossed out if we go out to eat and I get like a prime rib sandwich or a prime rib in general or whatever, and they bring the side of au jus. Once I'm done eating, I'll typically take the cup of au jus and I'll just drink it. Like I like it that much, and it totally like just grosses them out. They don't want any part of it for whatever reason. Hey, but that's me. Call me crazy.
That could go good on a hot dish, I think, too. You could put some au jus on hot dish. Yeah.
A night of gravy and au jus shooters. Like let's get weird with some shots of some of that stuff. Sounds great.
I like it. Let's take a little circle around the bases here. The last couple episodes we had a couple of Iowa JUCO coaches on. Of course, Nick Mishler from DMAC and Todd Rima from Kirkwood. If you haven't watched those episodes, I mean, they're on YouTube and we've got the audio on Spotify and Apple, so go ahead and subscribe there. But Rob, that's your world. They're coaches that you've seen, you probably went up against. What did you think of the conversations?
I mean, of course, I think every single podcast we do is the best of the best. But, for me, I think those two really kind of like ratchet up the ladder. Just getting, I think that was the cool thing about it, just like getting their true like perspective of what they're doing and how they're trying to build their program and the type of players they're looking for. And one of my biggest takeaways was, and it's very realistic, like to me it really felt like they're really trying to like groom and develop young men, like taking these kids out of high school, getting them onto campus, obviously playing sports in college, being a student athlete. I think that's such a great thing, but it isn't all about wins and losses. It isn't about just the competition on the field, like just everything they're doing on a daily basis to help all those individuals within their program and give them an opportunity to move on to bigger and better things. I think, yeah, for anyone, it doesn't have to be specifically JUCO. I just think any high school player, families that are looking at having their son or daughter move on to college and continue playing sports, like I just think those are really impactful conversations and information that a lot of people should dig in on.
Do you, without naming names or trying to finger point at any programs, but do you feel that it might not be equal at different programs? Like you don't have that attention to detail, that the focus on just development and that sort of thing. Do you think they're, not saying that they're in Iowa, but any programs that you went up against, you're like, hey man, this, you're just focused on this year only, and then moving somebody along, you're not as invested.
Well, I think that is the cool thing about Iowa is one, like Iowa's just jack loaded with a lot of really good junior colleges. Um, but regardless of whether it be JUCO or D3 or D1, NAIA, whatever it may be, I just think there's so many good college coaches down here in Iowa at all the various levels. Obviously, we were able to spotlight just two on the podcast, but I mean, we could bring in over a baker's dozen of different coaches that I think are making serious impacts on a daily basis. You know, I think the cool thing about, at least about the junior colleges, the cool thing about them in Iowa is I think they're all uniquely different. Um, they all put an emphasis on, they all have an emphasis on the same things, but maybe kind of a varying scale of how they kind of piece it all together. One question I get, like, I want to go to junior college. Who's the best junior college in Iowa? Um, it's a really ambiguous question, because I think there's so many schools and so many great coaches and so many programs, but they're all uniquely different. What is it? There's 12 ways to skin a cat. Like, I think they all do it somewhat differently. They all have their various emphasis on certain things. And yeah, I mean, what would be a great place for one player might not be the great place for everybody. And so I think it's so important for players and families not just to look at like, okay, this is how they're ranked nationally, or this was the team that made it to the World Series last year, so they obviously got to be the best. Like, I think you need to drill a lot farther down into it. You need to do your homework. You need to take your visits. You need to actually communicate and meet these people in person, because, I mean, there's just a ton of really good options here.
Yeah, and I think any player parent that is heading down that track would benefit from listening to the last two podcasts that we had with both the coaches. And yeah, if there are more coaches out there that want to get in and talk a little bit more, I'd be happy to discuss more. But for right now, we're going to turn over to the class of 2025 because last week we dropped a new ranking, the seventh rankings that we've dropped on this class. So you've seen, Rob, you've seen a ton of them. You've seen them now for multiple years. Let's start at the top 10. Give us a high level overview of everything.
Yeah, lucky number 7, the seventh rendition of this class. Um, no, I mean, obviously, it took about 3-4 years starting prep baseball for me to ultimately start getting that greater overview of a class, like seeing guys from their eighth grade freshman year all the way through their senior year. Um, and so it has been really cool with this class. You know, rankings are really fluid. They're always going to change. Guys are always going to move up. Guys are always going to move down. You're going to have new guys pop up. You're going to have guys that make huge jumps from a development standpoint, and they're going to rise, either enter into the rankings, or if they're kind of maybe lower down, they're going to start to skyrocket up the board a little bit. Um, so it's been really cool just to follow this class ever since they were, 14 years old. Now in their senior year, getting ready to move on to bigger and better things. Obviously, I think last week a big highlight was obviously our number one ranked player, Tatum Gray. Got his college decision out of the way, heading out west. Going to be an Oregon Duck. Um, I'm not sure if lime green really necessarily brings out his eyes, but we'll see how he wears it. We'll see how it all goes down.
Does he enjoy traveling, air travel, bus travel a lot? Isn't that the schedule usually has a lot of miles on it on that end, right?
Yeah, but we'll see how it looks and feels, moving forward. But with Oregon kind of being in the monstrosity of the Big Ten now, it's going to give some opportunities for him to come back to the land of milk and honey and back to the Midwest, and for his family to have more proximity to see him play and do all those good things. Um, so for him to get that decision out of the way, I think that's obviously big for him. That's awesome that he had a ton of options and opportunities to look at a few different things, you know. And then you just kind of go down the list, Milo Kelly, really good player. You got Reed Strohmeyer bumped up a little bit in the rankings. Um, he just really kind of fits that. I think he's probably going to maybe even have a little draft interest going into the going through the spring. Just athletic, left-handed hitter, kind of looks the part. I don't think a ton of people have seen him much or seen him enough. Um, so we'll kind of see how that goes. Tate Slagle moved up a click or two. Um, Obviously really athletic. Iowa, University of Iowa did a really good job. They obviously got they got 3 of the top 5 guys in the state. So I think they've jumped on the right guys, and that's only going to help them in the future. And then, typical Iowa wise, then you have some really good guys, some guys ranked in the top 10 that are going to go the junior college route. We had kind of talked about that with Coach Rima. Like, Kirkwood's done a really, really good job recruiting this year. They've up and down the 2025 rankings. There's a lot of guys committed to Kirkwood. Southeastern has done a really good job as well. DMAC, um, Iowa Western, Ellsworth, Iowa Central. Like, they've all kind of got various guys up and down the list that I think are going to really help them. So yeah, and I think there's still what's going to be with this class. I think there's still a lot of development. Um, if we were to like project out, like maybe like 2-3 years down the road, it'd be really interesting to revisit these rankings, at least where they're at right now, and kind of see ultimately where the chips are going to fall as they continue to develop and improve. So
Well, with that in mind, and this is putting you on the spot again, but who's the dark horse out of that you would say, hey, as of right now, I'm visualizing you here, but if everything breaks right, your development, your training, you grow, you eat a bunch of protein, you drink your juice sauce, who is your guy that you'd be like, hey, this is one that is going to rise in 4 or 5 years?
As spinach is to Popeye, as au jus is to baseball players. Yeah. Relievers are coming out of the bullpen. They're not slamming a Ghost or a Red Bull anymore. They're just slamming a big shot of au jus and coming into the game ready to tear people's heads off.
Charging like a bull.
I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Um, a dark horse. I really like Grant Sorensen. Like I really like Grant Sorensen. I think the defense is ahead of the offense, but the defense is immaculate. You know, playing a premium position, playing shortstop. Um, I think that's going to carry him for a while, but as he continues to mature physically, as he continues to get stronger, um, playing that premium position, what he can do defensively, the swing works. He's going to get stronger. I think he's going to be super interesting 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah, as I recall, we
Yeah,
saw
that would
him.
be it.
We saw him a handful of times in the fall tournament circuit, and a couple of really nice swings. And you commented at one point like, "Hey, he's even from the spring, he's come a long way. Maybe a little bit on the body, maybe a little bit on the swing, but he was improving." So if he makes the steps that you're saying, yeah, I can see that.
And if he can, and he will, but as long as he sticks at shortstop, that's going to be such a premium at the level that he can defend. And yeah, it's. I think he's got a chance to be even better than what he is, and he's pretty good right now. So
Well, of course, these guys are all committed. Grant Sorensen's a South Dakota State commit. Um, Wanted to touch on some of the uncommitteds left on the list. Obviously, we're late in the game, and there's probably a little bit of panic, but also the fact that the recruiting cycle has changed a bit, meaning that there's probably some better talent uncommitted just because of how things have shaped up with the new rules. Give us a name or two on your list that's currently uncommitted, and heck, that person could be committed before the end of our recording here, just because of the timing it is. But a couple of names or a name or two that stand out to you.
yeah, two guys I really like. One of them is Brady Coffman from Grinnell. Big, physical, very athletic. Um, he had an older brother that actually went to Southeastern Community College probably 3, 4 years ago. Um, his brother was built a little different. He was really tall, almost baby giraffe-ish. Um, Super tall, super lean, right-handed pitcher. Just Brady is really just developed physically through high school. And even more impressive, he's really athletic. Like he runs well, has a strong arm, has some juice at the plate. Not, I think the question marks with him. It really hurt him last year because he was injured and he was on the shelf and kind of off the radar. But then he popped back up at our state games event in August. Um, because of the injury, the arm issue, he had kind of relegated himself to just maybe playing first base through the latter half of the summer. Um, that's not the correct position for him. Like he's way too athletic and he runs enough and he throws enough. He probably needs to get as far away from first base as he possibly can. Um, I'm not sure if pitching is going to be in his future because I mean it was early on. It was either like his freshman or sophomore year. I want to say he came to an event and he ran it up to like 87, 88 as a young guy. Um, so I don't know ultimately if pitching is going to be in the cards as we continue to move forward. But I just think he's too good of an athlete and he's too good of a baseball player that he's got to have options. He's got to have options, and ultimately, it'll be interesting to see where he lands. Another guy that I really like, and the is Talon Young from Iowa City High, and like Talon's one of those guys. If you watch him on video, if you look at the data, like nothing's super gonna stand out. Um, he's built like a bull. He's super strong. Just kind of a compact body type guy. Um, going to be mid 80s a majority of the time, 83, 85, right there in that range. But when you talk about competitive guys and just simply when you're going into whatever you consider your game 7 and it's a must win game and you got to lean on a guy and who you have the most confidence in, like Talon Young's been that guy for Iowa City High for the last 2 years. Like he misses bats, he works super fast, fills it up like crazy. I think he works so fast and he throws so many strikes that just the tempo overwhelms guys offensively. They can never get settled in and get their ace swing off. Like he just constantly is just coming at them, coming at them, coming at them. And I've watched him a couple times now in games, and it's just like it's really good. It's really good. He's a winner the whole way through, and I mean he would be such a plus guy to get added into someone's college program.
So those are the two that you expect to see snapped up at some time in the near future, right?
I would think so. I would think so. Yeah.
All right, let's. In one of our articles this week, we've talked about some of the other things besides the uncommitted. Was the risers in the rankings? Obviously, we just said it's the 7th iteration, and there are players who maybe started lower, and for one reason or another, they're jumping up, and you've got a few that you want to highlight, correct?
Yes. One for sure. The I really like Drew Owen from North Polk High School. He was actually a guy that I never really heard anything about. I'd never seen him before. He'd never been to an event, and we were in the tournaments this fall. And a good friend of mine, a good friend of ours, Troy Tronson, came up to me and was like, "Hey, have you seen Drew Owen?" And I'm going to start him on the mound this next game. You really should check him out. And I mean, he's just really good. Like left-handed, a little better than mid 80s on the mound. Strike thrower, just as good in the outfield. Can track it really well. Swings a really good bat. Um, we've talked about all the recruiting changes. He's committed to DMAC. I think he goes in there absolutely as like a legitimate two-way guy and being able to help on both sides of the ball. And that's the cool thing about this job is there's always guys in the weeds. There's always guys still to be found. Like I said, first time I saw him was September of his senior year, and at least on my radar, he went from not having any idea who Drew was in the first place to, I mean, he rockets up, and now he's the 29th ranked player in that class. So I really liked him. He was good. He was good. I wish I had seen him earlier in the process.
How about anyone that's pushed up your board that you maybe had lower and then either figured it out or had a big growth episode and is now higher in your rankings?
Yeah, Jacob. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Jacob Foudree. Um, I've seen him a few different times. He was just okay. But then this fall, I did a scout day with the Iowa Canes program. Um, he really impressed me there. Like he's just really athletic, um, strong arm, has some bat speed. It was just one of those things. Like when I kept going down the rankings, you just have certain guys that you kind of keep going back to them for whatever reason. Like there's just something about them that is interesting or uh, continues to catch your attention, and he was one of those guys. And so when I took like the whole overall body of work and kind of continued to piece it together, um, I just thought he had a lot of helium. I definitely think I had him positioned as a under the radar type guy, and but I just think he has a chance to continue to get better. I mean that's one of the things when I'm looking at the rankings is looking for guys that are going to continue to have a chance to get better. They already have some athleticism. They just need to just ultimately there's a huge difference between 20-year-old men and 17, 18-year-old kids. So I still think there's a pretty high ceiling on him. So yeah, he made a pretty significant jump up the rankings as well.
Those are some good names. We When we release this will be Monday of next week. It'll be the week of the 2026 rankings list. I don't know if you want to tease anything on it, other than the fact that it's dropping next Wednesday. But is there anything you want to just kind of get out there ahead of time?
I did want to say congratulations to Tucker Long. That made for an interesting week. Two number one ranked players, previously uncommitted, both dropped their announcements. I think on the same day.
Like a half hour from each other. It was like, oh man, can you
Yeah,
guys
maybe. Yeah,
face it?
maybe there's some coercion involved. I don't know. But yeah, congrats to him. He's going to Ole Miss. Got that decision out of the way, and yeah, I think this time of year, like there might be some big shuffling a little further down the rankings. I definitely think we saw a lot of guys this fall through tournaments and events and whatever else. There'll be some new names going in. Um, I think the top 10 is relatively solidified. There'll be a little movement here or there. But yeah, I think the interesting thing about the 26 class is I think the 26 class is really deep. I think it's really deep with super interesting guys. Um, but like with any grad class, it'll just be interesting to see like who develops quicker in that class or who makes jumps sooner than later, because that's kind of going to dictate like guys moving up, guys moving down, guys entering in, all that type of stuff. But yeah, super, super deep.
Yeah.
And
So
obviously, following that, we got the 27s, and then we'll have the initial drop later in December of the 28s.
yeah, so follow our X channel at Prep Baseball IA and our Facebook pages, our Instagram pages. We'll be blowing up the internet a little bit on that.
Yeah, this is supposed to be our downtime. Holy cow.
Right? Yeah. You're gonna have to work
We got
right through
rankings
Thanksgiving
upon
dinner.
rankings upon rankings. By the way, I did want to give kudos to you, the best of 2024. All the various graphics and all the articles and everything you've been putting out, kind of highlighting all the performances in Iowa from the past year. That's been pretty awesome. That's a lot of work, so I appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome, but it is also fun to like look back on those and go, yeah, I remember actually seeing that at that event, or at the preseason All State or at the state games, and it's kind of like a little trip down memory lane and just one little graphic. It's fun.
Yeah, we get
I remember this
certainly
event.
emotional.
It was 110 degrees on the turf, and I was nearly passed out. And this kid was just hitting bombs at the track man off the track man. Yeah. So with the rankings and the 2024 season almost wrapped up, I mean, we don't have any more events, but we'll be dropping the rankings. Let's transition to our take it to the house question. And I know you had prepared for food, and I'm going to hit you with movies. And
Yeah, shocking. I had prepared for food.
and so again, I think you're right. There's not a traditional Thanksgiving movie genre, but these movies that I'm going to list, 5 of them, do encapsulate a little bit of, the Turkey Day traditions. Okay. So rules
I
are
love when
again.
you do this.
Rules are again. I'm giving you 5. You're ranking them blindly, not knowing what the next movie is going to be. So you're going to try to put the 5 together as best you can, right? I'll start with an easy
And
one.
these are 5 movies that I have to rank that somehow, some way, are loosely wrapped around Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think you might have heard of 4 of these. The 5th,
Okay.
I'm familiar with, but I've never seen. I'll start with an easy one. Grumpy Old Men.
2.
See, that's a Minnesota movie. That's one of my favorites. I just love it. The Grumpy Old Man, the Minnesota vibe. It's great. Number 2, that's a good one. Okay. Son-in-Law.
Is that the one with Pauly Shore?
Pauly Shore. It's in Iowa, right? Isn't that where he goes back to?
I don't know if we would let him in the state, to be honest, but I'm gonna have to go 5. I'm not a big Pauly Shore fan.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, I agree. I understand where you're at. Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving.
Oh, 1.
Okay.
That is an Allison household classic.
There you go. All right. This movie came out in 2023. It was called Thanksgiving. It is of the horror genre variety, I want to say. It has an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I actually think I maybe skimmed over it on Netflix one day. It's gonna have to go to 4. I haven't seen it.
All right. So the last one,
Kind of a bush league addition to this list, I feel, but we'll go with it.
I'm gonna watch this movie either tonight or tomorrow night, just because it's intriguing enough for me that let's give it a whirl, right?
I'll be looking forward to the text.
Last one.
You can let me know how it goes.
Absolutely. Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Oh, well, yeah. There's only one spot left, so it's going to go to 3.
That's going to 3. But now that you have everything in your forefront, where would you put that one?
That would for sure be number 1.
Ahead of Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Del Griffin. That's just, he was fantastic.
Yes, I actually saw a social media post in that one scene when Steve Martin shows back up at the rental car counter, and in that dialogue dropped 19 F-bombs. And I listened to it twice and actually tallied the F-bombs on my notepad. And
the
man after my own heart. Yeah.
The actress in that scene, right? She's on Ferris Bueller. I couldn't tell you her name, but that whole scene I saw somewhere on Instagram, she improvised, and she based it on a conversation that she actually was having with her sister offset, and just kind of took it and just ran with that on the phone. So there's all that gobble gobble turkey, like things that they actually were saying to each other, which, yeah. Great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Great movie. I can guarantee my kids have never watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which then reflects poorly upon me as a father.
Well, that's something you should do tonight or tomorrow night. Then gather everybody, a family, planes, trains, and automobile night. Pop the pop idea. Secret. Mm-hmm.
Definitely we'll get some pop secret going on. Yeah.
Well, I'm out of topics. I've enjoyed everything we've talked about today. Rob, you got anything else to add before we give an official sign off?
Yeah, the last thing. Obviously, we have events coming up in February and March. We have some great idea events. Guys getting their foot in the door, getting some numbers, video, everything else up on the board, and coming up in March, the Catalina wine mixer of showcases the preseason All State. Who's who from every corner, all the better guys flooding in. Like, it's one of my most favorite events of the year.
Yeah.
So if you haven't requested an invite, get an invitation request in. We'll go through it. We'll see if it's a good option and opportunity for you. And if you have got your invitation, make sure you get registered. That event now is sold out 8 years in a row. Don't expect anything different this year. I think the talent's going to be even bigger and better than previous, and every year has been really good. And yeah, ultimately, piece everything together and get ready for 2025, baby.
I can't wait for another couple of months till we get to do that one again.
That's a beast.
All right. Well, that's Rob Allison. I'm Parker Hageman. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving, or you've already had your Thanksgiving. So hope you digested well, and we will talk to you again soon.